Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered what happens when a rising power finally decides it has had enough? Because right now, the world's biggest problem isn't war, oil, or technology. It's trust collapsing between nations. And in the middle of that storm, one country quietly built a plan so bold, so unexpected, that global leaders still don't know how to respond. A plan from India, a plan that could reshape alliances, shake markets, and challenge America in a way no one saw coming. And today I'm going to reveal exactly what that plan is. For years, America assumed that India would always remain predictable, cooperative, compliant, and grateful for whatever support it received. But beneath the surface, something very different was happening. India was watching every move, every restriction, every delay in technology transfers, every moment where its growth was slowed because someone else believed they had the right to decide how fast India should progress. This pattern built pressure, and that pressure built awareness. India realized that being underestimated was not an insult. It was an opportunity, because when a nation is underestimated, it becomes invisible. And when it becomes invisible, it can plan without interference. The turning point came through a mix of trade disagreements, political lectures, and sudden policy shifts by America that left India feeling boxed in. Instead of treating India like an equal partner, America often acted like a supervisor, setting limits, offering partial cooperation, and expecting India to simply accept these boundaries. India noticed this imbalance not once, not twice, but repeatedly over decades. And with every incident, the desire for strategic independence grew stronger. But India didn't react emotionally. It reacted strategically. It learned, it adapted. It took notes on how global power actually works. India understood that the world respects strength, not requests, confidence, not compliance. So it began quietly building its own capacity, economic, technological, military, and diplomatic, so it would never again be in a position where another nation could slow it down. The real trigger, however, wasn't a single event. It was the realization that America's policies were built on the belief that India needed the U.S. more than the U.S. needed India. That miscalculation became the fuel for India's silent shift. Once India saw that it was being underestimated, it used that underestimation as a shield, preparing a long-term plan that would one day make the world rethink everything it assumed about global power. India's economic transformation didn't happen by accident. It began with a simple but powerful realization. Real power does not come from speeches, alliances, or military displays. It comes from economic independence. For decades, America held enormous influence because other nations relied on its markets, its currency, and its trade systems. India understood that as long as it depended on those same systems, its future could be shaped or restricted by decisions made outside its borders. So India crafted a quiet but ambitious economic masterstroke that would change everything. First, it shifted its focus toward manufacturing. Instead of relying on imports or waiting for Western companies to invest, India launched long-term programs to strengthen domestic industries. It studied global supply chains, identified their weaknesses, and positioned itself as the world's next major production hub. The idea was clear. If the world needs what India produces, the world cannot ignore what India decides. Then India accelerated its infrastructure expansion. Roads, ports, digital networks, logistics corridors, structures that form the backbone of any powerful economy. These weren't just construction projects. They were strategic moves to make India self-reliant and globally competitive. As these networks grew, so did India's ability to negotiate on its own terms. Meanwhile, the country's booming population turned into an economic advantage. With one of the world's youngest workforces, India became a magnet for investment. But instead of letting foreign companies dictate the rules, India set conditions that ensured technology transfer, local jobs, and long term benefits for its own development. This was a major shift. India was no longer accepting whatever was offered. It was choosing what worked best for its future. The most surprising part of this economic rise was its speed. While many expected India to take decades, it became the world's fastest growing major economy in just a few years. Every percentage point of growth reduced American influence. Every new industry India built weakened the old belief that global power flowed only through the U.S. economic system. India wasn't trying to confront America. It was building a foundation so strong that confrontation would no longer matter. For many years, India was seen as a country that needed technological support from the West to advance. It was expected to wait, to request, and to depend on others for critical innovations. But India realized that this dependency was its greatest vulnerability. If another nation could control the flow of technology, it could indirectly control India's speed of progress. That understanding became the turning point. Instead of relying on what others were willing to provide, India decided to build what it needed on its own terms. The first major shift came through digital infrastructure. India created a nationwide digital identity system, cashless payment networks, and large-scale data platforms that were not only efficient but years ahead of what many developed nations had. Suddenly, the world began noticing a surprising reality. India wasn't following technology trends, it was creating them. This momentum extended into areas like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and biotechnology, where India invested heavily in research rather than waiting for Western partnerships. Space technology became another symbol of India's new direction. Instead of buying or borrowing, India launched its own missions, developed its own rockets, and sent its own satellites into orbit. What shocked the world was not just the success of these missions, but how cost-effective and innovative they were. India proved that it could produce world-class technology without Western price tags or Western permission. Defense innovation followed the same pattern. India started designing fighter jets, missile systems, and surveillance technologies that once seemed out of reach. Every new achievement reduced the need for American or European systems and increased India's ability to make independent decisions. This technology shift was not loud or aggressive. It was quiet, steady, and disciplined. But its impact was dramatic. By developing its own technological ecosystem, India broke the pattern of dependency that had shaped global power for decades. And as the world watched, one truth became clear. India was no longer a follower in technology. It was becoming a leader the world had to take seriously. India's rise on the global stage didn't happen through confrontation. It happened through connection. While many nations relied on traditional alliances or military blocs, India took a different path. It built a network of relationships so diverse and strategically balanced that no single country, not even America, could fully predict or control its direction. This wasn't just diplomacy, it was long-term positioning. India understood that real strength comes from having options, and options are created through alliances that serve national interest rather than ideology. The shift began when India started forming deeper ties with regions that had long been overlooked by the West. In the Middle East, India developed strong partnerships in energy, infrastructure, and security. Instead of depending on one supplier, it diversified deals with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. These relationships were built on mutual respect, not pressure, giving India leverage in global energy markets. Meanwhile, India turned its attention to Africa. For decades, Western powers treated Africa as a resource zone, but India approached it as a partner, investing in development, digital networks, and trade. This created goodwill and access to markets that were rapidly expanding. It also ensured that India had influence in a continent where global competition was intensifying. In Southeast Asia, India pushed forward with connectivity projects, maritime agreements, and defense cooperation. These moves strengthened its position in a region crucial for global trade routes. Europe followed next, as Europe searched for stable partners beyond the U.S. China rivalry. India stepped in with technological collaboration, climate initiatives, and investment deals. What made this web of alliances so powerful was its balance. India didn't pledge loyalty to any one side. It built bridges with everyone, Middle East, Africa, Asia, Europe, without getting trapped in their conflict. This strategy expanded its global footprint while keeping its independence intact. And while America was busy choosing sides, India was busy choosing strength. India's greatest strategic move in recent years has been its ability to rethink how it sources, uses, and secures energy. For decades, global energy markets were heavily influenced, sometimes even controlled, by Western powers, especially America. Energy routes, pricing, sanctions, and trade restrictions often gave the U.S. tremendous leverage over developing nations. India understood this better than anyone. It knew that as long as it relied on a narrow set of suppliers or politically sensitive routes, it would always remain vulnerable to external pressure. So India began reshaping its entire energy strategy with patience, clarity, and long-term vision. The first major shift came through diversified oil partnerships. Instead of depending on a single region or following Western political alignments, India broadened its energy connections across the Middle East, Russia, Africa, and even South America. This wasn't simply about buying crude. It was about building relationships that created stability and bargaining power. When many nations hesitated to deal with certain suppliers due to global tensions, India kept its doors open, choosing economic sense over political pressure. This independent approach allowed India to negotiate better prices, reduce supply risks, and lower its vulnerability to American policy swings. Parallel to this, India accelerated its investment in renewable energy on a massive scale. Solar parks, wind corridors, hydro projects, and green hydrogen initiatives turned the country into one of the world's fastest growing hubs for clean energy. This transformation reduced long-term dependence on imported fuel and positioned India as a future leader in sustainable power. It also sent a clear message: India would never again be controlled through energy economics. Additionally, India expanded strategic oil reserves, modernized its energy infrastructure, and pushed for local production of equipment and technology used in the energy sector. These steps ensured that even in moments of global crisis, India could remain stable. This multi-pronged shift weakened one of America's strongest points of global influence: its ability to shape energy markets. India's message was simple but powerful: a nation that secures its own energy secures its own future. India's most powerful strategic decision was choosing a path that almost no major nation has dared to follow: complete freedom from external influence. For decades, the world expected India to take sides, to align fully with America, or to lean toward other global powers whenever tensions rose. But India chose something much more ambitious. It chose itself. This shift wasn't born out of arrogance or confrontation. It was born out of a deep understanding of how global power truly works. A nation that picks sides becomes dependent. A nation that stands alone becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is a form of strength. The approach unfolded gradually. India refused to be drawn into military blocs, trade camps, or ideological battles. Instead, it evaluated every decision purely through the lens of national interest. If a partnership benefited its growth, India embraced it. If a policy harmed its independence, India walked away, even if it upset powerful nations. This kind of autonomy confused many global players who were used to influence, pressure, or persuasion working easily. But India showed that respect is earned not by choosing a team, but by choosing a purpose. One of the most significant steps in this strategy was India's decision to maintain balanced relations with countries that were rivals among themselves. While others tried to drag India into their conflicts, India refused to be a tool in someone else's rivalry. This created a unique position. India became a nation that everyone needed, but no one controlled. It could talk to all sides, trade with all sides, and negotiate with all sides without being tied to any of them. What shocked the world most was that this independence made India stronger, not isolated. It allowed India to operate with flexibility, adjust to global shifts faster than superpowers burdened by alliances, and avoid being trapped in political storms shaped by others. By staying neutral yet powerful, cooperative yet independent, India crafted a position that rewrote how modern nations can operate on the global stage. So when we look at everything unfolding today, the economic rise, the technological leap, the global alliances, the energy shift, and the fierce commitment to independence, we see a nation that refused to be defined by anyone else's expectation. India didn't announce its plan on a stage. It didn't shout it across the world. It moved quietly, confidently, and with absolute clarity. And now the world is waking up to a reality it never prepared for. The balance of power is changing, and India is shaping that change with intention, discipline, and vision. This is not a story of conflict. It's a story of transformation. A story of a nation that turned every challenge into fuel, every underestimation into motivation, and every delay into determination. Today's world is not being shifted by the loudest voices, but by the smartest strategies. And India's strategy is rewriting what global strength looks like. One decision, one alliance, one breakthrough at a time. The message is simple. The future will not belong to the nation with the most noise. It will belong to the nation with the most purpose, and India has never been clearer about its purpose than it is right now. If you want to understand the new world that's being built right in front of our eyes, stay informed, stay aware, and stay curious. The global power landscape is not just changing, it's accelerating. So if you want more breakdowns like this, more truth behind the headlines, and more deep dives into how nations are shaping the future, make sure you follow along, stay connected, and share this message. Because awareness is the first step toward understanding the world, we're stepping in to thank you for giving your time, your attention, and your mind to this journey. Your curiosity is the reason conversations like these matter. Stay strong, stay sharp, and stay hungry for knowledge. Until next time, take care, stay focused, and thank you for being here.